Welcome to the Social Impact Level Up podcast. This is where we blur the lines between business, nonprofit, and impact. Social entrepreneurs in our community share their stories of how they are changing the world and building a legacy of health, wealth, happiness, and wellness. I'm your host, Wendy V, along with my co-host, Rodrigo Bravo. Together, we're social entrepreneurs building a collective of impactful humans who are going to make this world a better place. We hope you'll join us. Here's today's episode. Today's episode is a bonus episode. This is one where I just felt like we should release this recording. Maybe it'll help someone, maybe it'll inspire someone, maybe it will give someone an insight into what kinds of things that social entrepreneurs struggle with. I originally wanted to have a conversation about people's nonprofit ideas and why they matter. We went into just more about hardships around starting a nonprofit and what does it really mean when you're not sure exactly what to do next. That's one thing that I like to help people with, is figuring out where are we going from here, what is the roadmap, and how do we get there in the most efficient and effective manner. And this is really because if social entrepreneurs don't do what they say that they want to do, then the world doesn't benefit, and the world isn't going to get that change and the inspiration and the motivation and all of the new good things that social entrepreneurs bring. And I think that when we stifle ourselves, or when we limit ourselves, or when we don't follow our ideas, then it opens up, basically the world to continue being exactly as it is. And as social entrepreneurs, we know that we don't want that. We want change. We want someone to make something new and better that fixes a problem, or to improve things for others so that they can thrive. A lot of what people are driven by in social change and social impact is by the idea that there's hope and there's inspiration and that there is something different possible. There's a different future that is possible, and there are only certain people who see it. So those people who see it, and those people who are willing to take the actions and do the work and step out and follow the processes and be successful, those are the people who are ultimately going to be game-changing, world-changing, badass change agents, right? These are the people that are carrying the torch, being the warriors. And we need to support them. And if they don't get support, they're going to stop. And that's why this episode is really important. It's all about how do we support social entrepreneurs like the ones I'm talking to today. And how do we continue to move forward when there's so many questions in just the how do I get started and what do I do range? And a lot of the times when I'm working with clients, these questions come up so frequently that I almost can't address them in content enough. And so I thought, let's put together this bonus episode. It's getting released a day earlier than normal on Thursday rather than Friday. And it's here for people who really want to connect and think about what is their idea to do good. And what does that mean? And how do you move out of the place of confusion, or the place of frustration, or the place of I'm not ready to take action? And how do you move into and step into the space of being ready, willing, and able to move forward with your idea and to move forward with what you want to do in this world? What is your purpose? What is your calling? What is your mission? And the people who follow their purpose and their calling and their mission, they're not going to have an easy journey. And if that sounds like don't let anybody tell you this journey is going to be easy. Listen to this podcast episode and hear that it's not. But you have to keep going. Because if you don't keep going and you don't push forward, then who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? But we can have influence. In this episode, I talk a little bit about one of my clients, Liz. So shout out to Liz from Leave No Pause Behind USA. She just got major legislation passed, and I'm so excited. We talk a little bit about that legislation in this episode. This was so long ago that she was still just working on advocating at that point. But now, just recently, just last week, we've heard that the legislation has passed both the House and the Senate, and she's going to be able to get military dogs, families who have military dogs, their coverage for support for their travel when a military family moves from one place to another is going to be covered by the government now. And that's something that originally, that was her nonprofit's purpose. That's their mission. So we're going to see what happens in the future with this new legislation as it gets passed, as it goes to the president for signing. But it's such a celebration to tell us, hey, social entrepreneurship works. This is a great case study of how not only can you have a passion, but you can actually change laws that change conditions for a whole lot of people. And if you're not, really taking advantage of the powers that you have and pushing yourself forward with your idea, then you're going to continue to sit in a space where you're not having influence, you're not taking action, you're not making an impact, and you're not changing policies and advocating for the people that you want to serve. And that can continue to be a very frustrating and confusing space. So rather than that, what you can take away from this episode is that there are examples and different people on different journeys, different parts of the path who are making social change, and you could be one of those people too. So I'm really excited to have you listen to this conversation today. This is, again, our bonus episode getting to the end of season 1. We will be going all the way to episode 40 for this season, and then we'll be talking with social entrepreneurs themselves who are making an impact one-on-one, and including a few of these group conversations in season 2. So I'm really excited to have you here as part of the community, and I hope that you enjoy this bonus episode.
Nonprofits are a super duper and big important part of our social fabric. They help us get things done. They help us move forward with different social issues, and they help people who are trying to move forward in their life. So a lot of the time, we depend on our nonprofits for different services or to help different causes move forward. And that's why I want to hear what your nonprofit idea is. So if you are listening to the replay of this on Clubhouse, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I am Wendy. I am a coach for socially conscious entrepreneurs, and I help people who are trying to make a difference through their business or their nonprofit. So with nonprofit ideas, sometimes people think that their idea isn't a good idea. Or they might think that, who am I to actually take this on? Who am I to help others in this way? Maybe I'm not from that population, or maybe I'm someone who's just inspired by something I saw, for example. And so it could be kind of overwhelming for people to say, well, especially with the savior complex, well, who am I to start this nonprofit and help this group of people? And I hear this a lot from social entrepreneurs, that when you are getting ready to step out and take on a cause as the cause for your nonprofit, sometimes you can feel a little reluctant because you're not sure if this is a cause that you should be taking on. And hey, Nicole, feel free to hang out. We're just talking about nonprofits and other ideas that people have for nonprofits. I'm talking about right now why some people might be reluctant to start their nonprofit. So hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. And there's replays are on, so I'm
Oh,
here
okay.
talking about this topic so that anybody who's listening to the replay doesn't hear dead air. But what I was
Yeah.
saying was, sometimes people are reluctant to start their nonprofits because they don't know if they're the person who should be stepping out and taking on this social issue. And so I'm curious, do you have a nonprofit? Do you have an idea for a nonprofit, or are you just interested in the topic?
I actually own a nonprofit to help shelter dogs. Any dogs that go to the shelter that have behavioral problems. My husband's been a dog trainer for 12 years, and we actually own a kennel as well. So we board dogs and all that fun stuff. And then we have the nonprofit for the shelter. And he will bring them here, board them, train them to be adopted out instead of euthanized.
That's so cool. So I have a dog. You probably hear her in the background shaking off, and she was a rescue, actually, from
Oh.
a group in Virginia that found her in Georgia under a porch with some puppies. So
Aw.
she's been with me. Yeah, she's a sweet girl. She's probably the best dog you ever could have gotten. She's been with me for about almost 6 years now. So
Oh,
yeah, she still acts like a puppy sometimes. So I
what
call,
kind of dog is it?
oh, she's a lab, so she's like the
Uh,
perpetual puppy. Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
But she's
yeah.
really sweet.
So when I had like, it's when we started the nonprofit, like you were saying, like you don't know like really where to start, and we didn't know where to start. We just kind of started it, and then we're just in the process of learning as we're going how to run it and like how to fundraise and stuff for it too, because the pandemic didn't help. Nobody wanted to, you know, give money to anybody because everybody's struggling. So I'm struggling with the nonprofit and trying to do the fundraising and the gift basket type stuff. Um, but I seen that you were talking about nonprofits, so I was like, sweet, I'd come in here and maybe get some
Yeah.
ideas.
No, I'm glad. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to get to my blog because I'm going to put an article up for you that I wrote that might give you some place to start with that first question. So yeah. So I'm a coach for people who have a socially conscious mission with their business or their nonprofit. So all nonprofits qualify, but
Oh,
some businesses, not all businesses,
right.
qualify for my help. But it's really trying to help people think about how to build a stable venture. So whether that's a nonprofit or a business, you still want, especially a social business, you want to make sure
Yeah.
that you have your impact goals and that you're meeting them and that you can display that success to your donors and that your donors are inspired to give you more money. So it's this really big cycle, right?
It
It's
is.
like
It
this.
yes, and it's
Yeah.
so big. Like I have three children. We have the business. I'm actually getting into studying to be a divorce coach. So there's just like so much to do with so little time, and it's very hard to run anything if you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why people like me exist. So,
Right.
yeah, so what I do for people is I kind of help them sort through their ideas and prioritize their time and energy. That's kind of the first part of my process because exactly like you said, you have so many roles, right? So you're kind of in this space and in this space and in this space, and a lot of the times when people are helpers, they might even have multiple causes that they're passionate about. So
Right.
then you have this like competing, well, where do I dedicate my time to my family or to my business or to my nonprofit or like all these things. So it is, I work a lot with women who are starting out or trying to organize themselves around this socially conscious mission. And one of the things I found was that people had this question of, well, how do I get money? And that's either, whether they're a business or a nonprofit, this is a fundamental question everybody seems to have. And so with the nonprofit side, I said, well, let me try to find a way to explain it as simplistically as I can to give people ideas of how to inspire their fundraising in a different way. So what I put together was this very simple blog post that gives you almost like a checklist of thinking about your fundraising strategy in terms of buckets of types of donors. And so I identified six. There's way more. There's lots of different ways that you can fundraise, but this is at least six that you should have in some way, shape, or form when you're going to go from a small to medium sized nonprofit. So when you see nonprofits growing, you'll see that medium sized to large sized nonprofits have grown to have all of these, to have these plus to really have a strategy for how they happen every year. And they have goals for growing that year over year. And so that is one of the things that is really interesting to me is sometimes small nonprofits don't even know about some of these funding streams that you could be accessing. And they go straight to me and go, oh, well, I want a grant. And I'm going, okay, well, do you know who you serve? Do you have the data to show that you're doing really good work? Like what are these other pieces that qualify you for a grant? Because you can apply for a grant all you want, but unless you actually have the things that they are looking for, you're not going to get it. So really putting together the infrastructure. But if you don't qualify for a grant, there's so many other ways to fundraise as a nonprofit. So that's what this article is about. And then also it teaches the basics of how to take multiple funding streams and make them work together for your benefit without getting it like sloppy in a way. Because I know a lot of people starting out are really trying to just get the money in the door, but not necessarily thinking about, well, how do I best leverage multiple streams of money coming in the door? So, in the article embedded in that is some ideas about how to understand your funding streams and how to make them work in the ways you need to. But also, if you have, say, a grant that doesn't allow you to do certain fiscal practices, then it kind of gives you an idea of other options that you can take to make sure that you're still adhering to the requirements of the grant. So I hope that helps, Nicole. You could definitely check that out as a resource to give you some ideas.
Yeah, that sounds amazing because it's just again don't know where to start and how to do it, and I like Googled how to get grants, and then I'm I don't know how to grant, right? I'm pretty bad at like public speaking as well. So I'm over here like, oh my gosh, and I'm looking up like for grant writers, but I'd have to pay them and
Yeah, that's the bad thing. And then you're not guaranteed to get the grant. So it's like
right.
it
And
could
then
be like an
like
investment you lose.
yeah, and I don't even know which grant places to write to, like what would be the best for me. And I've looked up all the dog stuff possible and who gives grants, and like you said, you have to have documentation that you deserve it. And when I'm in a pickle over here because the pandemic and just my life in general, and how I just can't pull my crap together to get like a resume for somebody to say, hey, we deserve this. And I,
Yeah, yeah. And I know the frustration, right? Because it's like chicken or egg situation.
right. What came first?
Yeah, it's like the energy or the time or the requirement to get money, like all of the things at the same time. So yeah, and that's exactly what some of the stuff I start working on with people around their sort of lifestyle and this work is how do you balance all the things? But
Right.
in the fundraising stuff, I think with grants in particular, I would say don't put the energy there until you're ready, right? Until you have all of that backbone information and stuff available to you. And
Yes.
so, and I have a lot of really like, if you go on my website, you can join my email list. I actually send out lists of grants every month that are like smaller grants that are like $5,000 or like whatever. And they're just different like regions even, so you never know what's going to pop up on there, and you can always check that as a resource to see if there's something that you think you could do. But sometimes some grants are actually even just like short 1 minute videos and stuff like that, so look for
Mm,
the things that you're more comfortable with and don't overcommit to things that you're not ready for, right? Because
good,
then
good advice. I like that.
you're going to get a headache if you try
Yep.
to
And I have a
overcommit.
billion times. I just like get way over my head and I get really stressed out. Then I don't even touch the nonprofit for a while. And then I'm just so devastated that I'm doing this and I just can't figure it out.
Yeah, and that's like the last thing that I want for the people that I work with is for them to stop doing the good work they want to do, right? Because like if they're passionate about something, you want to promote people to do those things and to do them well. And so what I try to do is give options for people like who are DIYers but don't want to stop, but also need to fit this into their life. And so if you go onto my website, there's a bunch of e-courses on there, and some of them are really like basic, like hey, let's start planning for writing a grant. Like, not even we're going to write it, we're going to plan for how we're going to do this. And I give you a framework, and usually give you like a workbook or something.
How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so I worked for the federal government for about 15 years, 13 years in the federal government, and then 2 years in the local government. And then I worked in nonprofit for about 6 years before I even went to government. So I've been around doing things like this for a long time, but helping social entrepreneurs and nonprofits directly as a coach, it's only been about a year. And it's been really cool to see how I'm basically doing the same job. I'm just moving it over into the space of having people who wouldn't normally have access to me to have access to me. So normally people would only have access to my kind of help and technical assistance and brain if they had millions of dollars of a grant and the government said that I could help them. Now, without me working for the government, I can just help whoever. And so I choose to do it at a price and scale that makes sense for people who are trying to do this work and survive and also be a good person. And so not trying to, make it difficult on folks, but really trying to make myself accessible to people.
That's awesome. Very, very much
Yeah.
appreciated. It's the same thing with like what I want to do with the nonprofit and a divorce coach. Attorneys are expensive, and I want to help, and I want to help cheaper and not be so like I don't understand why people aren't out there just like helping everybody to succeed instead of wanting people to spend thousands and thousands of money to get what they're wanting.
Yeah, and especially if people have the dedication and energy. And Christopher, welcome to the stage. We'll come to you next. But I think with the if you have the energy and the time you can dedicate to educating yourself to do the things and to stay motivated to do them, it makes sense to have DIY routes. And I think more grant writers are starting to see that it's difficult for them to maintain their business model doing a done for you situation. And with the idea of building infrastructure and coaching, it provides more stability for people to actually be successful. So since I've actually been on Clubhouse talking about what I do, what I've noticed is some grant writers have actually started moving towards my model. Because I think they see me and they're like, oh, there's something here to this. This makes
That's
sense. And I'm
awesome.
yeah, and so I know that even now, like you'll see a lot of grant writers around Clubhouse actually aren't taking clients because they're changing their model and they're just doing like courses and saying like, here, go learn yourself, and then I'll only help you with infrastructure. Or they've already have enough clients, they're not taking new clients. So it's actually hard to even hire a grant writer right now. So
Yeah.
it's better to kind of pick up some of the skills on your own. But yeah, but thanks for being here and just definitely hang out. I'm going to share some more stuff in a minute, but I want to welcome Christopher. So, hey,
Um,
Christopher,
Thank
how are
you.
you? Yeah, yeah. And make sure you get on my email list, Nicole, because there's a bunch of cool grants I send out all the time. Christopher, how are you?
Yes, good morning, Wendy. How are you?
I'm good. Did you have, I can't remember. So what do you are you working on right now? It's the basic human needs stuff, right? Do you want to share and your ideas?
Yes, actually, I'm really here to listen, more or less in the nonprofit section. I'm a corporation. I'm not a nonprofit, uh, but I support nonprofits. I mean, our mission is always in line. Just always a service to people in the community. So I always like to listen to other people who have nonprofit or community service initiatives, and always look to reach out and connect in which way I can with what I'm building, our basic human needs platform, to see how some way or another we can connect services or connect our projects together and support one another because nonprofits are a sometimes it's a life link to the community and the people of essential services that's needed. So I've been dealing with a lot of nonprofits throughout my career, partnered with a lot of them, created projects with a lot of them, helped them raise money with a lot of them, and it's always in my heart to connect with them, especially in these day and times and where we're moving forward, and the new nonprofits that are starting up with the younger people and how they're creating models and initiatives for community service, and even to the point of how they're raising money now. Everything has changed and is changing even as we speak. So I'm always all ears. And I just want to always give support to people who are in the nonprofit sector. I'm Christopher Dunn speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. I always love to hear about your projects and what you're working on. And yeah, there's so much room to support nonprofits and their missions. And the thing that I love is that there's so many diverse missions out there. And so, none of us have to really do any of this work alone because there are a lot of people who are passionate about the things that we're passionate about, but you just kind of have to connect to them. So that's why I created this club so that we have people that can connect. And so, Nicole, I wanted to tell you about one of the women I'm working with. So first of all, I have this accelerator program I do every month, and what I do is I work with people who have a bunch of ideas, need to sort them out and funnel them into an action plan. And so in that, one of the cohort right now, her name is Liz. She has a really cool nonprofit who is, so she was in the military and has realized that there's an issue with transporting the dogs of military family members. And it's really costly. And a lot of the times, the family members don't have the ability to cover it. So, therefore, they would either be needing to give up their dog or they just wouldn't be able to bring it with them. So, like, what happens to this dog, right? So, she's really passionate about this whole thing. And she's been able to not only set up the nonprofit and really start moving forward with growing it. So, that's what we're working on together is how to get her fundraising strategy in order. But we're also working on like her website and some other things. And in that she has this really cool advocacy opportunity where she's been working with both Republican and Democratic representatives to get a law passed where they would have to, as part of the military orders to move the family, they would have to cover the transportation for the pet. And then as that they did that, it would be something that would be in legislation and all of the military branches would do it and blah, blah, blah. So she's doing some really cool advocacy in addition to starting this nonprofit, in addition to finishing a doctorate, in addition to being a mom. So I just wanted to
And
inspire you with that.
that sounds awesome. I can't wait to tell my husband about that because that's that should be like the military should pay for dogs. And then yeah, what does happen to the dogs when they can't go? Like that is the saddest thing. I'm over here in tears thinking about it.
Yeah, and so she was telling me just a quick story about her work. She was telling me that there was a dog they had to transport out of Ukraine because there was a military family that was like basically like, hey, we can get this dog in the last plane getting out of here, but like we really need to get this dog out. And so they did end up getting the dog out and getting it over here, but it was a very last ditch effort. So she's just doing really cool work, and I want to connect you because one of the strategies that we were talking about with fundraising and with this legislation was to connect to other dog-oriented nonprofits to share information about this issue and how people can support this bill once it comes up for vote. So
That would be awesome. I'd appreciate that. To be,
yeah, so I'll make sure to write that down to connect you guys.
well, thank you.
Yeah, and she's really, really cool, like really nice woman. So,
Where's she from?
where is she located now? I don't really actually remember where she's physically located at now.
Where are you
Um,
located?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Okay, I'm in Michigan.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've been in Houston just for a year, but I'll be ending 2 years. I'll probably go back to Maryland in a couple months. So it's
Oh,
a yeah, never ending battle of where am I gonna live.
right.
Yeah. So let me give you some more information. Do you have other questions or things? Because I know I'm going to wrap up the rest top of the hour, but you're here and you have questions. I can answer them. What things are you working on that would help you continue to, move forward? If you have, some questions I can answer, I'll be happy to do that.
It was just like I'd have to just start out with the action plan. I have ideas, and like my house is a mess because I'm like, oh well, I'll put this with like the raffle stuff, and I'll put this over here for our garage sale we're gonna have, and it's just like my brain is just so crazy. I don't even know where to start. So that was what I came here looking for, and if you can
Oh,
connect
yeah.
me to other people and whatnot. But other than that, I don't really have any questions. I'm just here to listen and get
Well,
ideas.
yeah, let me give you a place to start because this is what I do when I'm in that space. And this is what I teach the people in my accelerator as the first step is to do a brain dump in a mind map. And that helps you physically see your ideas. And it also helps you connect the ones that need to be connected. But if some of those ideas need to translate into your physical space, it'll also help you think through where do you need to create space for those things that you're worried about. So if you have a bunch of stuff in your head and you're feeling overwhelmed, just take out like a blank piece of paper, grab a pen, excuse me, and you're going to put yourself in the center and because this is your life and your social venture, you're the biggest vessel for this work, right? So the work can't be bigger than you. The work is a component of who you are, and now you're branching out into another type of work and another type of work, right? So if you're the center of the mind map, then you're going to create at least three buckets around of your main things that are your ideas or what you're thinking about. What are you worried about, right? So you put these things out there. Now, there might be like 10, right? But just start, for example, with three. And then you're going to branch out with at least two to three other sub ideas or things related to that you're trying to just make space for. Maybe it's an idea that you don't want to lose or something you've been thinking about, and you'll kind of branch them out in that way. So as you get to, at least these three and maybe one or two other layers, you'll start seeing what it is you need to be worried about and what are your priorities, and you'll be able to discern things that you can maybe put aside for a second or things that need to be done right now in order to make space for something else. But sometimes physically seeing it and having the ability to like manipulate it will give you the brain space to actually move forward with whatever action you need to take. But if you're just thinking about all these ideas and they're not sorted out in some way, or they're not working for you in a sense that you can go forward and do them, then what's going to happen is you just kind of get paralyzed by all these ideas. And like you said earlier, you do nothing. Like you choose to just stop working on one part of it or stop working on something because you can't mentally get the energy to move forward. So, in order to avoid that, this whole mapping process helps you do a brain dump, but then it also helps you start prioritizing when you do have the capacity to move forward. Where are the places that you want to harness your energy in order to start feeling like you're progressing? And then as you progress, being able to then take on more and more of the pieces of the mind map to start working on. So I don't know if that helps you.
Yeah, yes, it's so funny because it's such a simple solution, but like I said, brain's crazy that I can't even get to like simple thoughts like that to start it. But yes, that's gonna help, and I'm gonna brain dump in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because so this is the same process I teach all my teams before we start writing grants. It's like we go and we do a joint mind map and we sit there and think through, well, what is our actual idea? Like, what is our purpose? What are we trying to accomplish? What outcomes are we hoping for? When we get to those outcomes, what it'll look like? What kinds of resources do we have available? Where do we need to spend our time? Like, there's all these other sub questions that you can ask yourself as you're going through the mind mapping process to help you determine what you actually put in on the paper. But if you just sit there even and do, other people have done this, which is stream of conscious writing, right? Like just writing down the words of the things that they're worried about or ideas. So there's no right or wrong way to do it, but I think there's something tangible about the kinetic energy of moving from your brain through your hand to the paper that helps you also alleviate some of the stress and anxiety around the things that you're worried about.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I teach it as part of the process for the accelerator, because I think it's hard for people to really start when you can't start thinking until you've unthinking, right?
Right.
So,
Yes. As
so
confusing as it sounds, it makes so much sense.
yeah, no, it's good. And so yeah, so I said that would be my suggestion for how to like get restarted is just try to organize, and then from there, once you have that, then you kind of have the ability to prioritize your time and move forward with the plan. And so the next thing that I teach people is how to do 12-week planning so that you have a actual quarter planned out of activities that you can do. And I give like a template for Trello and stuff like that. So there's tools that you can use to like to organize yourself once you actually do the mind mapping. But in order to get to the thing of knowing what to put in the tool, you have to sort through the ideas in your head first.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Social Impact Level Up podcast. From me, Wendy V, and my co-host Rodrigo Bravo, we sincerely appreciate your follows, your likes, your subscribes, and your shares. Make sure that you're reaching out to us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful day, and remember, keep changing the world.